Hey guys, it's Fan, and I'm going to be trying a new style of video today. One of the things I've noticed is that there's plenty of mod guides on the internet of how to mod pretty much any blaster, and more importantly, how to take it apart. That's something that Lord Drac does very well, is that he's like, okay, you know, these screws go here, you take this apart, now you got your plunger tube and, you know, barrel assembly and all that stuff like that. But sometimes I have difficulty putting things back together. So the only help is to get a picture of stock internals, just to look at that, and I can figure it out from there. But I think it'd be much easier if I start from scratch. There are videos out there that started from scratch and just put it back together, and I think it would be a very effective video. So this is just a trial video, I guess. So right now I have a Recon. I'm modding this for my boss, just some simple mods, so nothing special there. If you want to go on a mod guide video, you can go to somebody else's, but this is just to put it back together. So this is a lot of the little pieces we have. This is the front barrel and then the dart tooth assembly. We got the trigger. This is the dart tooth that's going to go into here. And this little guy is the spare dart holder. You can see the rails in here. You can fit an extra dart right into there. A lot of people call it a suicide dart because it's not that effective, but this is a little piece that goes right into there. One thing that we're going to be looking at with the Recon is that the sliding mech, which are these, go on the outside and they actually screw into the main body of the blaster, as opposed to other ones which are just external, you just pop them right out. So I'll show you how to attach those. This is the little cup of screws that we have, and to attach these on either side we're going to need 2 silver screws. Now there's 3 in here. The longer one is not the one you want to use. You want to use the 2 shorter ones, like so. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking this, which says Recon CS6, and we're going to be putting it into the side. Now, there's 2 little places where it looks like screws might go. The one to the left, the one that doesn't stick out as much, is the one you actually want to screw into. This one actually goes into the hole of the bolt sled right here, as you can see. So, we're going to screw those in, and I'm going to do it on either side of the shell. So let me just get my screwdriver and put it in here. So we'll just screw that right in, and this attaches the slide to the to this half of the shell. And we'll do it on this side too. Now please excuse my messy work table. I got a lot of stuff to do and I haven't really cleaned it in a while, but I probably should do that soon. There we go. So it should look like that on both sides. So we got that taken care of. We shouldn't have to really deal with this until the end stage, so I'm just going to put this off over there. Now next let's worry about the dart tooth. So this piece is going to lay in like so. Right in the front. This is the front barrel attachment, and this is where the breech is going to go into. Now the dart tooth stops the dart from just getting pushed out and not into the barrel. So first what we want to do is take this, before we've screwed this in, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute, take this and insert it right into there. So, so that this little triangle thing is kind of facing down. And we're all going to slide that in and tease it in, keep this spring down, there we go. Now first we're going to screw these 2 in, and luckily Hasbro's is being nice, and most of the exterior screws are the same as the internal screws. So you really don't have to worry about which screws you're grabbing. It's really easy for the Recon, which is nice. It's one of the reasons why it's one of the easier ones to mod, is just because there's not a lot of different types of screws, even when you compare them to the internals. So we'll screw that in. And it's going to be, this plate here is going to be right before this plate. So that's the 2 screws. These 2 screws are going to be covered by external screws, so we don't have to worry about that. Another thing we have to keep this dart tooth from kind of flinging out from the internals, we have this little plastic piece, and it gets laid in like this, so it kind of hooks over it. And right there we want to get our last silver screw, the one that's a little bit longer than the other 2 that we used for the sliding mechanism for the priming. And we're just going to stick that right into there and screw it in nice and tight. And that's the dart tooth taken care of. Not many people do a lot of modifications to the dart tooth, so you may not need to do this. If you just left it stock, then, you know, forget about it. We'll just move to the other one. This is the jam door. What we want to do is we want to put the slide back, and this little pin here actually helps to just do the pin separate. You put the pin, you have this little hex almost place here. You put it right in front of there, and then you just slide the jam door right on top of that. And it's being a little finicky on me. There we go. Yeah, you gotta force it a little bit. So there we go. There's the access door, or the jam door. Next, let's look at the plunger tube and such. And I've lost that. Oh, here it is. So here's the barrel assembly. This is where the dart would go in. I've already removed the air restrictor. And as I stated before, these little holes on the side of the bolt sled are going to be going into the hole right behind the screw. So if we just put the slide all the way back and just kind of put this into here, that goes right into that hole. I hope you can see that. And so that way this sliding mechanism is all locked together. One thing I have not included to put in are two things. One of them is the clip lock. Now the clip lock usually goes right in here, and it prevents you from moving the clip release back and pulling the clip out unless the breech is back. But I don't like to have that in there because just in case it gets a really bad jam, I like to just take another clip out if it's just not feeding properly, if it's double feeding. And also, I'm also taking out this lock, which I believe is the priming lock, meaning that you can't pull the trigger. Means you can't pull the trigger while the bolt sled is back, and that's actually terribly effective, and I'll show you why. This is one of my Crimson Recons, and I have Orange Modworks Stage 1 and 2 in it. And when I prime it back and I don't have a dart to fire it with, what I like to do is I like to hold the gray bit, pull the trigger, and then just ease the spring back rather than dry firing it. And that's something that's really effective, and it just helps you operate the blaster better, especially under jam conditions. Alright, so next we want to put the plunger tube on the back. Now the way this is lined up is this little block on the bottom here is the bottom of the plunger tube. And we're going to want to make sure that that's on the bottom because that activates that switch. And I forget what that does, but you need to have that square on the bottom, and you need to have these lined up in the running rails so that this is going freely without any fuss. So we'll put that all the way forward, and then we're going to take this, which is the catch. Now this holds back the spring and also the plunger tube. You probably already know that, but again, I'm just making this as comprehensive as possible. And we're going to line that in right behind where the plunger tube lies when it's all the way forward, like that. And so what that does is that when you prime this thing back, that is supposed to catch, if it doesn't fall out of line, that is supposed to catch on this plastic piece, so then when you put the dart forward, this is kind of falling apart on me right now, when this goes all the way forward, you have a spring that's compressed in the back here, putting pressure on here, and it's being held back by this plastic piece in this spring. And you have this air volume, and the dart has been chambered and should be in the front. So now what you need to do is have something to release that. And that's where you want to put in your trigger. You put the spring back here, so that way when this goes back, this incline pushes this up and releases all this tension that's up in the spring here. And that's what you want. So this is how it's going to operate, and this is how it's being assembled back together. Now, the tricky thing about getting a Recon back together is aligning this little peg here with this side of the bolt sled, and also aligning everything else. So that's what you're going to want to do next. Is just kind of line it all together. And you want to line these bolts up so that way they can both get on that bolt sled. And it seems like it's going, but I'm not sure yet. Looks like it's good. Now the one thing I forgot to bring, I forgot to put it in, is the spring, is the main spring. Silly me. So at least I know I can line it up correctly. I'll make sure the dart holder stays in there. So we're going to put the spring in like so, and then rest it right on this little ridge here in the back. And I just dropped the dart holder again. There we go. Okay, let's try this again. Just last glance to make sure everything's lined up and pushed down. Some things like to pop up and it makes it so you can't assemble the blaster. There we go. And that's, as you can see how I'm moving this back but the plunger tube isn't moving back? That's because these are not connected to the plunger tube, so I have to make sure that they are. I'm probably going to have to pop this open again. Again, this is what modding is really like, unedited, is it takes a while. Come on. There we go. Make sure that this one is connected as well. Looks like it's not. This dart holder does not want to stay in. Usually with something like this, I may just leave this out and not do these screws and then just kind of wiggle it in if it's being that fussy on me. Oh, jeez, there we go. Yeah, chances are I'm not going to be editing this, or I may be. I may be talking in fast forward right now, but this is what modding is you just, it doesn't work half the time, and you just have to make sure everything's aligned, especially in a Recon. There we go, that's much better. Okay. Let's get the catch first. I should start some music up again. I'm listening to a lot of Dio recently. There we go. Now the spring's in there. Let's try this one more time. Silly advertisements. Let me just skip this. Okay. That's looking good. Now, you want to hold it real tight and just sort of see that, yes, I'm getting tension and I'm moving the plunger tube, so that's working. So now what I like to do, this is especially true if you're doing any mods, especially spring additions, is that you want to put in half the screws, and just to give it some structural stability, make sure you put screws around key points, like the back of the plunger tube where there's going to be a lot of stress. But I like to put in, like I said, half the screws, just to see that it's working, and I'll put a few shots through it, and then I'll put the rest of the screws back together. This is just a general technique for most blasters, is what I'm going to do, is just to test it kind of halfway through. That way I know that it's working, but I don't have to go through the pain of screwing everything and unscrewing everything. And I have a tendency that if I have to screw things and unscrew things enough, that I'll be lazy with me using my screwdriver, and that will lead to me stripping screws, and then that's not fun. So I'm probably going to put 2 screws up near the front as well, which is actually right behind this priming mech, which is annoying, but you have to kind of hold it up against yourself and then screw it in like so. And like I said, most all these screws are the exact same size, and there is one extra long screw, like so, that goes right here on this little gray meshy bit. That's where you want to put that one, but all the other ones are the same size, so it makes it super easy to screw back together. And with any reverse plunger blaster, you really do need to remember this back plate. And that's the last two screws I'm going to put in, is on this back portion here, and that supports the back of the blaster when it's primed and has tension on it. There we go, and I just need one more. Okay. Alright. Well, that sounds good. Let's just put a dart in there as well. Alright, that works pretty well. So all I'm going to do is put the rest of the screws, and like I said, we just got a super long one that goes right in here. But other than that, these are all the same size, and they just go all throughout the body. There's 4 in the handle. I've already got the 2 there, 2 in the priming mech, and then also 1 there. One thing I forgot to put back in was the rail attachment, but that's not a huge concern. I can either add that later, or I can just not include it at all, because I really don't use attachments, especially on the priming mech of this. I think it gets in the way. And I also forgot to put this in, which is fine, because it was being finicky, so I can just sort of gently split this open and close it back down, so now I can store a dart there. So, yeah, that's basically the end of this video. Again, comment and tell me if you like this sort of video to help you get through this troubleshooting so you know how everything comes back together. I would love to do more videos like this. So, again, leave a rate, leave a comment, and like if you like. But, yeah, you guys have a nice day, alright?